MPC era powered A with the E unit and a light, and this is an old Lionel era powered A that I've got running backwards, and this is where the power is coming in on this motor right here, and that would be the same as right here is where this one's getting powered. What happens is all the E unit does is it swaps which direction the electricity goes through the armature and the coil. This connection and this connection are the ones that go to the E unit right here and here. So I took the outside connection that goes from the E unit to here, and I took this wire and brought it to this one. So otherwise the opposite. So that motor's running backwards when this one's running forwards, vice versa. I took this motor's outside connection and connected it to this middle one right here. This connection right here, or this terminal right here and this terminal right here, and on this motor it's this terminal and that terminal are the ones that I swap. But basically what you end up having is one E unit reverser controlling both those motors. So that's hack number one. I'm going to put a plug in here somehow, and I've got some shells. Let me show you where they're going. These are the shells that are going to go on. This shell here is going to end up on this one right here, and the shell here that has a slot at the top for the E unit goes in the front. And I'm just going to do a little run with each of the Hilltop Saw Shop modified Lionel Alcos. It has a pull more like this, where basically both axles are driven, no traction tires. And you see those skinny little axles? That means it does not have a magnet traction either. And the reason I like that is it adds some tractive power to the unit. But if there's a slight speed difference in the way those motors are driving based on different voltages and amperages, this later model, it's an MPC era pull more motor, can actually just pull the whole thing even if it was shut off. But it isn't shut off, and it actually works. And you notice there's no slot in the top of the cab, and there is one here because this is the E unit on the front powered A, which controls both of these. So what I did is I wired both the motors through the one E unit. So let's just see if it works. Okay, let's see if it can pull a hill. We'll check its voltage and amperage draw, and I'm going to do this as a comparison to some of the other ones. By the way, my Marks has now got a little voltmeter. So let's see what it takes to get this thing to go up the hill with those cars. So let's see if the E unit now works and see if it goes backwards and forwards. So we'll turn that on. One of the things I like about this transformer is I can run the lower voltages. So I'm waiting for decals. We're going to get some decals and some letters to make that more like a Lehigh Valley than what it is now. That was supposed to be cherry red, but came out a little bit darker than I like. But actually, when I started looking through the archives, that color really isn't that far off. So there's some things I got to do to finish this off. One, obviously, is the lettering. The second is I'm going to change the wiring just a little bit to be a little more flexible because it doesn't like the tight corners that are on this inner track. So there's one. So I'm going to take it off. Let's see what that ended up with. And I'm going to show you the next one we've modified. We've got several modified units now. And this one here, I've got these shells. And I got them for like cheap, like $5, $6. They were broken up. I got the chassis that's powered there for like $35 or something like that. And this one here for another $35 or $40. So basically I don't have a lot of money into this, but it's a really cool AA powered pair. I think it's pretty cool. So how much do I have in that? I don't know, maybe $100. You know what I'm saying? Of course I'll get decals and paint and stuff like that. It'll push it up to maybe 125. And I guess I have to count this as the second one. And this is a Texas 211, mid 60s, has the pull more that has a little rubber traction tires. And this is pretty much how I bought it. So I don't know whether or not that's a NPC era chassis or the original Lionel. It could be either or. And I bought this powered A, dummy A, from a local train store for like 80 bucks, and I thought that was a good deal. And it's a good running locomotive. And then what I did is I spent another $45 online and got a much later model MPC era powered chassis, and I stuck it underneath that shell. So I guess that's modified, but my God, it's just, you know, you spend another 40, 50 bucks on eBay and just get the powered chassis, because they show up from time to time. And now I have a AA, both powered, and they run really, really nice. And let me just bring it around. Warm it up a little bit. Let's see what voltage and amperage it takes. Remember, the other one jumped up to about 14 volts and required almost all of 5 amps to get started. I guess it runs about the same, but it definitely has more tractive power. There's no question about that. And it runs smoother. So while the other one was a more extensive set of modifications, this is one that anyone can do. And all you got to do is just sync up the two E units, you know what I'm saying, to make them run in the same direction. And because of this same basic design, same basic generation chassis, they run really well together. So that's a very successful one. I just don't like the Texas special bodies. I want to get these to something the East Coast. So I'll look for either Erie, or I'm going to repaint these into a Lehigh Valley as well. So that's the second one, right? This will be my third set of Alcos that have been modified, in the sense that that set of ABA is not as they would come normally. And what I did is I kind of cobbed together a NPC era motor, but what I had was a earlier version set of pickups. So this guy here's got a whole lot of pickup power, because both the Pullmore truck, you see that little wire coming up from there, that's a pickup, and plus you got this wire coming up out of here, which is power. Now these are that later version, so you have that plastic tower for a bearing support, and plus you got a little adjustment, so basically the armature pushes up against that little adjuster right there. And these are a whole lot nicer than the earlier versions. And let's see what it's going to do. That's running pretty good. When it came, it was like the standard Delaware and Hudson 8252, where there's no front hook. So really the modification to this one changed out the front truck with one that has a good hook on it. That's what the big modification is on that one. Another modification I had to make on this one here, because again it was like this right here, was I had to die grind out a slot in the front so that the hook could pass through. So not only did it get a different hook, a different set of trucks, and a lot more pickup power, but it also got a slot up here so the hook could come out through the car body, so it can be a trailing A. So let's see if it works. So yet again, even though that looks all impressive, there really is no more tractive power on that than there is on those Texas 211s, both set to going forwards. Let's see what it takes to get it going voltage wise. I'll run it around to the lower track. That's easily the prettiest set of Alcos I have right there. They have the latest generation of the Pullmores for the 80s. And again, the modification to this one was I started out with one of these, an 8252, and I put a different truck and I cut a hole in the front of the car body. You have a powered A, the dummy B, powered A. So effectively, the tractive force really is just two powered units, and comparable to that one right there. Only that one has a little bit older Pullmores, right? I think I showed you that. You know, those are real pretty. That's from the early 50s. You have a powered A, dummy B, and a dummy A unit. It has all the bells and whistles, literally the horn, but it doesn't pull nearly as well as this set right here. Not nearly as well. Prettier model, die cast, and command a higher dollar value, you know, in places like eBay. But this right here is the best unit that I have, and I think it's better than the early 1960s era, 1950s era Lionels. The MPCs are underrated. So anyway, got one more modified by Hilltop Saw Shop Alco set to show, and it's my favorite. It's the ugliest one, the rattiest one. It's in theme with the shop, but it pulls really well, and it just simply doesn't use a lot of voltage or amperage. It just works. So let me show you that one. And this is my favorite. And this is where I've got two magnet traction Pullmores. And not only are they magnet traction, but both axles are magnet traction. Right? You see that larger diameter? Here is a Pullmore from 1055 or a bunch of others. There's a bunch of the different Alcos that didn't have magnet traction. And you'll see that it has smaller diameter axles. Same basic armature and gear and all that. The gear ratios are all the same. It's just the magnet in the magnet traction required a larger diameter. Now you're going to see a bunch of these with one axle with magnet traction and one axle small. So they had different options, and as you went up the price list and a little more expensive, they would add different options to these Alcos. And I'll let the train experts give you the different road names that went on the different options. But you had a horn, you had lights, you had the E units that were different. You had some that had hooks up front and some that didn't, like this one right here was a 1055 chassis yet again that didn't have a hook up front. Each of those would be an extra cost item, right? And I mean, these run. We could put this chassis on the track right now just the way it is and it would pull some cars, you know. But as you can tell, it's not going to pull up the hill very well because it doesn't have magnet traction. It was meant for a small 027 layout and not to pull a lot of heavy cars, just a couple of very light, you know, of the lower cost and lighter weight cars. And if you remember, this is effectively what I put underneath this, my latest concoction of stuff, where you've got the non-magnet traction Pullmore. It has metal gears, and then I've got the later with the little traction tires Pullmore from the 1980s. And this unit right now works really well. Okay, a little goofy looking. And these shells were not the best shells. This was just an experiment, so I wanted to see if I could make it work. This one had a injection molding flaw down here, and this one here was just broken. So, but got a hook on the trailing unit. Does not have a hook on the front. This one actually I put a horn in this unit right here, so this one's got E unit, light, a horn, non-magnet traction like this right here, Pullmore, and then an MPC era pull mower that has the rubber tires. So, and it works good. I'm going to change some things up right here with either thinner wires or make them cross so it's easier for the engine to flex. But I've had fun with that. And also I want to get decals for it, but we already covered that. Let's go see how that Boston and Maine 217 hacked by Hilltop Saw Shop runs. That's my favorite one. Now this one does not have an E unit. It only goes in one direction. So, but it does have two Magnetraction pull mowers and it pulls real well. And the thing I like about this, I'll let you see, is let's see if we can get it going. Check out the voltage. It uses significantly less power than the other ones. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but it marched right up that hill with the same set of cars. I mean, that's not a huge load, but it marched up that hill because from this switch up to where that is right now, the mountain, that's all incline. And it used 12 volts where the other ones needed 14, sometimes 15. It also used less amperage. So of all the Alcos that I have, that one there uses power more efficiently, or uses electricity more efficiently. And it pulls well. I could put a lot of cars. And actually the limitation on this right here is it neither runs out of power or runs out of traction. But what it does is on the sharp corners, if I get more than 12 cars going up this hill, 8 to 10 cars I start having issues. 10 to 12 it'll start having them roll off the track as it goes around that corner, and the rest of them are down that hill. So the limitations aren't the locomotives at all. It's just the physics of the train itself. And one of the reasons I like that B unit right there, I can set that in the middle of the train and kind of add power, you know. Yeah, march right up that hill. Now, if you remember, this is the one that I modified in several ways. First of all, that chassis was not the original one that came. The original chassis that came with this A unit got cut in half, and the back half is on the back half of this B unit, right? And I bought another pull mower for like 25 bucks, 30 bucks online. So this is another Magnetraction pull mower I got online used. on the back half of the chassis that came with this. And then I bought yet another cheap chassis. I don't know, it was another 1055 or one of those. And then I bought yet another pull more. So that's a combination of a bunch of different bits and pieces. And the only reason I put a hook on this one, it did not have a hook before, but I added a hook, is I was using this for a pusher. I was using this set of units as a pusher. You know what the problem I had was with those? They would actually generate more tractive effort than the pullers at the same voltage and basically fold up the train. So I ended up having to lead with those and push with the other ones. Kind of a funny thing. It's either that or put them mid-train and hang a whole bunch of cars off the back to sort of even out the load. But that thing there is pretty much true to form for the channel. We call it chicken chit. Not to get into bad territory, to chicken soup. Just a collection of junk, and boy, it runs good. And I have more fun doing that than buying, you know, more of those $400, you know, fancy computerized multiple can motor locomotives that require all kinds of control systems. These right here just for me are fun, and you can hack them and make them like that and pull trains. I have more fun trying to figure out how to pull a bigger train, you know, and distribute the power and figure out how to get the load up this hill. That's interesting to me. That's where I'm having my fun. So, oh, and Mark's got another voltmeter. So now it has an ammeter voltmeter, just like the Variac has an ammeter voltmeter. And it looks to me like we need to put a locomotive down there. That train's sitting there doing nothing, right? So now for a little bit of history. The Delaware and Hudson actually did interchange with Boston and Maine. So having these two road names in the same layout actually isn't far out of whack with what actually happened in history. And then there was another road name that interfaced with Boston and Maine from time to time, and that's New Haven. So let's put it in New Haven Alco. This is a 232, and again, it was fairly low down on the price list. It was not an expensive version, and it did have an E-unit. This one also has magnet traction on both axles, and it has a light, but it has no hook and no horn, and there was not a B or a dummy A for those. It was just the way it is. That was my very first Alco. That's the one that started it all. So let's run the marks, give it some voltage, and see if it'll go. Not a lot of amps, 13 volts. All right, let's take this guy right here.